Hello, my name is Mike Wooten, and I'm the president of Cornerstone Estate Planning. And we partner with the Free Will Baptist Foundation to help our church members put together their estate plans, sometimes called inheritance plans. We live in uncertain times, and it makes common sense to have something in writing to protect those we love. I want to show you how to prevent family conflicts and problems from arising when the family assets pass from you to your children. Additionally, this would also include strategies or methods to deal with situations that occur while we're alive that might render us incapacitated and therefore unable to handle our affairs. Our fundamental philosophy is that recognition of any inheritance problem is 95% of its solution. By identifying the potential problem areas now, you have the opportunity to establish an inheritance plan so those problems won't arise after you die. We want to make you aware of the impact of human nature, the human nature that causes jealousies and conflicts and rifts in perfect families when the inheritance is divided. By making you aware of these problems and giving you solutions, you can avoid the traps that so often hurt those whom you sought only to help. I want to share a story with you about Arthur and Patty. They told the attorney who was drafting their plan, "Our children are absolutely perfect. They love each other, and there'll never be a problem between them." The inheritance plan that was drafted for them was very basic. Everything they owned would be left equally to their three children, David, Mark, and Jennifer. About 20 years later, Arthur died, with Patty dying a few years later, and their children came to the lawyer's office to sign documents and get their inheritance. The meeting with David, Mark, and Jennifer couldn't have started out more pleasantly. They talked about how marvelous their parents were and how they did everything they could for their children and grandchildren. This was a conversation that would gladden the heart of any deceased parent. They ultimately came around to how wonderful Arthur and Patty were to put David through college. With this comment, the room grew strangely quiet, and Jennifer's husband stared into the corner of the office and started making some quick calculations in his head. A few moments later, Jennifer's CPA husband announced that with books, tuition, rent, food, and dues for David's school, Arthur and Patty must have spent about $50,000 on David's education. On the other hand, Mark went to the local junior college and became a real estate broker, and Jennifer never pursued higher education of any sort. The joyous mood and the good feelings among the children took a turn for the worse. Silence ensued following the realization that Mom and Dad had spent a significant amount of money on David's education and literally nothing for Mark and Jennifer. Jennifer finally broke the ice after this awkward moment, and in a voice that could only be described as bitter, she said if Dad and Mom had thought about it, they certainly would have equalized. They certainly would have left extra money or property to her and Mark to make up for their support of David. Now, the implication Jennifer made was this: if David was a moral, upright person, he would now give a portion of his inheritance to his brother and sister to make up for their parents' failure to equalize. But not a word was heard from David, and noticeably Mark and Jennifer stared at their brother. Finally, after a long, awkward silence, Jennifer's husband icily quipped to his wife, but loud enough for all to hear, "Well, I guess your parents didn't love you as much." So much for family loyalty and perfect children. To this day, David no longer speaks to his brother and sister. The divide has transcended the generations, as David's children have no contact with Mark and Jennifer's children, and the grandchildren have no idea why. You see, it's been our experience at Cornerstone that money brings people's true character to the surface. Let me explain the process that occurs with our assets when we go home to be with the Lord. Most states demand that you have some type of death document in place. Now, typically, this can be either a will or a living trust. Now, there are advantages and disadvantages with both. On the one hand, wills are very easy to put into place. Any decent attorney can put a will together, and they're usually pretty inexpensive. The average will for a couple would run anywhere from $500 to $1,500. Now keep in mind, that's just for the paperwork. These are your directions to the probate court of how you'd like your assets distributed. Most families will require the services of an attorney to complete this process. This can become rather expensive, time-consuming, and difficult depending on the circumstances involved. Attorneys tell us that anywhere from 4 to 6% of an estate could be lost through probate. So if you were to take even a modest estate of $200,000, you could see anywhere from $8,000 to $12,000 lost to the family. On the other hand, you could put together a revocable living trust, which is simply a legal entity that holds title to all of your assets. You're still the owner of these assets, but you own them simply as the trustee of your trust. It would run a couple somewhere typically in the $4,000 range to put something like this together. Now, the advantage to this is when you pass away, all of your assets will flow through to your family immediately without ever having to go through the probate process. Additionally, the Free Will Baptist Foundation has figured out a way to put a 30% discount on this for our church members in the $2,700 range. This makes it much more affordable for our people. In fact, most families want to spare their loved ones from ever having to go through this probate process. As I mentioned earlier, bad things happen to good people, and we need to have strategies or instructions in place to handle those situations should an event like that occur in our lives. Let me share a personal story with you. Our lives changed forever on April 10th, 2005. My 17-year-old daughter was on a boat at a local lake, and the young man driving the boat didn't know what he was doing, and my daughter was flipped out of the boat. The boat literally ran her over, and the propeller severed her left arm and disfigured the left side of her body. These are all just teenagers, the last day of spring break. She was airlifted from the lake to a hospital in downtown Atlanta. After emergency surgery, the doctors were able to save her life. Fortunately, in this situation, we were able to make all of the decisions for our daughter. However, the attorney that was advising us mentioned that we were extremely fortunate that she wasn't 18 years old yet. Because, as everybody knows, you can't make decisions for anybody over the age of 18 without some type of prior written consent called an advanced medical directive. The attorney went on to point out that if my wife or I were in a hospital and in critical condition without written instructions, it could be horribly difficult on the other spouse. He then suggested that we put together a comprehensive estate plan to protect our family. We took his advice and formed a revocable living trust so that our family had all of the legal protection we needed. My daughter became an amputee that day. However, she graduated high school. She went on to college, and she now works as a PR director at the Weather Channel in Atlanta. God is good. The Free Will Baptist denomination is urging all of our church members to give serious consideration to protecting their family by putting a plan in writing. This is something that we are all instructed to do. Proverbs 13:22 tells us that a wise man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. One more thing to think about. Many of us want to leave some type of monetary gift to the Free Will Baptist denomination at our passing. We all want to hear, "Well done, good and faithful servant." One of the advantages of having a trust is you can dictate that your plan contains some type of gift so that when you go home to be with the Lord, that gift is made and it can't be challenged by anybody. Actually, my wife and I decided to tithe on our estate. And to date, we're approaching almost 1,000 families within the denomination that have left gifts to Kingdom Work, totaling close to $20 million. So if you've been thinking about a plan for your family, we urge you to give us a call at the Free Will Baptist Foundation at 877-336-7575 and speak to us concerning this. It's easier than you think to put this plan together. We have qualified attorneys that we are working with, and most of this can be done over the phone. And lastly, if money is an obstacle, the Free Will Baptist Foundation is offering interest-free financing to all of our church members. Please, give us a call. You will never regret having this protection for your family. Thank you for your time, and we hope you found this video educational. We look forward to serving you. God bless.